So I am joined now by UNT alumnus and now basketball coach Kennedy Miller. It is good to see you again, my friend.
Man, it's good to see you too.
So you're a coach now. So what caused you to go into that?
Actually, when I was at UNT, we did some of the sports shows and stuff, and so probably about sophomore, junior year, I started working with the girls basketball team first. They needed boys to come and play against them, and so I started working with them and Coach Mitchell and the staff, and then when they started getting around in conference play, I started getting interested. They would bring the scouting report sheets, and we would kind of be the practice squad. So I really got interested in that, and I started picking up some books and reading. And I've always kind of had an interest in coaching. And so that following summer, I went up to the basketball facilities, and I just tried to be a manager for either the men's or the women's team. So I became a manager for the men's team my last 2 years at UNT, and then got into coaching right after.
So obviously you're a coach right now. So now with this coronavirus, practicing social distancing, quarantine, how has that affected your coaching abilities and being around your players?
It's tough because, we can't have any contact, and I coach AAU as well. So this is right around the time that we're about to get things loaded up. I think we had one tournament before this all kind of went down. And so, we try and connect through Zoom, and our organization tries to give the kids workouts that they can do at home, try and still keep in touch with them. But, it sucks because we're about to get on the AAU circuit and, about to keep going, and then all this happens. But you got to take the right precautionary measures to make sure that everybody's safe. So.
All right. So like you said, you used to be a manager for UNT basketball. And
yes,
I'm assuming that you were following this season before it basically all fell apart with the coronavirus.
Yes, sir.
How impressed were you that they actually won, that they got to go to the Conference USA tournament and actually won a conference title, but they had to try and compete for the March Madness tournament?
So my first year as a manager was Coach McCaslin's first year as a head coach. So you could see that, you can tell when people come to change a culture that they bring a winning identity. So honestly, I wasn't that surprised because if you look at his track record, he's kind of won everywhere he's went. And so I was impressed, though. I mean, they got some really good guys now, and they got a couple of commits that I saw over the weekend. It's a kid from down here. His brother was my childhood friend. We went to high school together, and so they're getting a couple of studs, man. And UNT's on the rise.
And do you think it was? I know a lot of UNT fans thought it was basically a given that they were going to win that tournament and make it March Madness. Do you think it was basically a given that they were going to make it?
Well, that is tough. That's the thing about these conference tournaments. Like you see, a Duke or a North Carolina will win. They'll win their conference, but the conference tournament comes, you only got to win. You only have to win one game. It's not like the NBA playoffs where you win 4 out of 7, and usually the best team wins. If you can't hit shots that night, it's tough. So I wouldn't say it was a given, but I would say that they probably had the best chance to win it.
Yeah, and moving on to another sport that is supposed to stay on schedule, UNT football. How do you feel about a football team with no Mason Fine? Do you think SETH LITTRELL can somehow create the same success, or do you think this is going to be a year where they're probably not going to look forward to?
Well, I mean, it's tough to lose a quarterback that's been there, 3 or 4 years, threw over 100 touchdowns. Mason Fine was a really good quarterback for the Mean Green. And so, you're going to be bringing in a guy that is going to be new. And so I have faith in SETH LITTRELL. I think they'll figure it out, but I do think it's going to be a tough year when you replace a quarterback that's been under the helm for 3 or 4 years. So.
And do you think that not winning a bowl game, do you think that SETH LITTRELL might be on the hot seat in a couple of years if they can't get a bowl game together?
Well, maybe in a couple of years. I wouldn't say now, because I would think it should be some type of loyalty to a guy that had a chance to leave, maybe go to a bigger school and chose to turn it down and stay here and try and build something. And so every year you can't expect 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins. Sometimes it is going to be some down years. And so I think if you stick with a guy that you believe in his vision, you got to let him be around long enough to put something in fruition.
Okay, and definitely one sport that was affected was a sport that you love so much, the NBA. Basketball was.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I was there when the season basically was cut. I mean, I saw Boban put up 30 and I saw Mark Cuban's
Right.
reaction. All that happened. How did you feel when you found out the season was canceled?
I was at basketball practice, and so I had my phone in my pocket the whole time. It was on Do Not Disturb, and so when we got out of practice, I saw all these messages. I had like 55, 65 messages. And, I got the Bleacher Report notifications. Rudy Gobert tested positive. The league is canceled. So I'm like, oh, man. So I'm showing all the other coaches. And it's like, where do we go from here? Like, this is like uncharted territory. Like, it's April. I'm supposed to be watching NBA playoffs every night at this point. And it's really nothing on. So it's like, I understand why they had to do it. It's a no-brainer why they had to stop it. But I hope that they can get it back started. I hope they don't cancel the whole year. I hope they're still in the playoffs.
Do you think that'd be fair? Because players like LeBron James have come out and say you can't just start the season now because there are plenty of teams that wanted to fight for those extra playoff spots.
Well, I think it's fair to the point where it's not just a couple of teams that have been off. Like, everybody's off. And so I don't think it should just go straight to the playoffs. But I do think that, when you look up at the playoff standings, Memphis was in the HC by about 3.5 games on Portland. Now, that could change now because at that point, Damian Lillard had just got hurt. He was going to be gone for a foreseeable time with a groin injury. But that changes things now that he's probably going to be healthy. On the other side, I think Orlando had a 5-game lead on whoever was coming out of the 9th seed. So it wasn't like those were really up in the air. Now, as far as the seedings go, as far as like who's 4, who's 5, that would have changed. But I think, I kind of agree with LeBron, but at the same time, I feel like LeBron is trying to put too many games before the playoffs. Like, we won't get started until like August at that point.
Right.
Like, I think it should be a couple of games. I think maybe the first couple of rounds, maybe the first 2 rounds are best of 5 or best of 3, and then your conference finals, your NBA finals, are best of 7.
And let's say the season wasn't canceled, or let's say maybe the seedings stay the same. What was your prediction on who's gonna make it to the conference finals and who's gonna overall win the whole thing? And I think I have an idea of who you're gonna go. Yeah,
Lakers and Clippers in the West. I was really impressed with Boston going down the stretch. Boston and Milwaukee, and so out of those, I think the Lakers would beat the Clippers
in a 7-game series.
Oh yeah, it'll be really tough. It'll be a 6 or 7 game series. I think Boston beats Milwaukee.
Really?
I do. I think Milwaukee's a really good regular season team. I don't think those guys are built for the playoffs.
Okay.
And so I think the whole rivalry. I think it's the Lakers and the Celtics and the Lakers winning.
Okay. Now, do you think Houston was kind of a dark horse? Because I know all of a sudden they started to do the small ball, but they started to really start cooking. They had like an 8-game win streak at one point.
Right. I mean, without question, when you have those 2 guys over there, they're dynamic as ever. And so you look at teams like, I said this even when Russell Westbrook first joined the Rockets, but I thought teams like the Nuggets and the Jazz would have better regular season records, but if they played them in the playoffs, those 2 guys are too much for any of those teams besides the Lakers and Clippers. Now, when they play those 2 teams, they don't have a big man anymore. I think the Clippers match up better with them than the Lakers do. But even if the Lakers matched up, especially with the addition of Markieff Morris, you putting Anthony Davis at the 5, you're asking a lot out of PJ Tucker. And, they retooled, they added Jeff Green and DeMar Carroll. They kind of really doubled down on it. But I still think it's really tough to play that way for a 7-game series against the size that the Lakers had.
Okay. And obviously we're missing the NBA, and I think a couple of days ago they decided to have a horse competition. And look, I'll be honest, I lasted 5 minutes. I just couldn't handle it. Like, because it made no sense to me. Like, Mike Conley was inside, then like another player was outside. It just made no sense because to me, I think they're just trying too hard to keep it going. Like, did you agree with that? Like, how did you feel about that?
I really wasn't on board. I didn't tune. I saw like a clip on Twitter of Paul Pierce trying to do like something, and he just looked like an old man. So I was like, this isn't really my thing to watch. But I do think that's really going overboard. I'm just kind of cool with just playing the old games. Like, I saw that they put Game 7 of the 2016 finals Sunday night, and so I found a link on YouTube where they've got some old games. So I've been watching, full games. But yeah, I don't really go along with the horse.
And look, I'll say this: watching old games now, it makes you like catch up on history and like try to remember some stuff. Because too many times you try to like, oh, recall this, but then you can actually watch the game. Let's watch the game right now.
Exactly.
And like, not too many people remember fully about Game 7, 2016. They just remember the block and then Kyrie hitting the shot. You don't really remember the entire game and how just crazy that series was.
Yeah, because it's like a narrative that goes, through the years, and so you kind of forget like the context of what actually happened in the game. Like, sloppy at first. It was really hard, and the Warriors had like this historically great offense and ended the game with 89 points. So it was a really ugly game for most of the game, and then they had a few flash points of greatness with the LeBron block, Kyrie 3, even the LeBron free throw to win it. Like, he almost dunked on Draymond. That kind of gets forgotten. Like, he had dunked on him at the end of the game. Like,
right.
I think that's a poster in almost everybody's house.
Fight probably would have broke out then.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
And so the NBA awards, I believe they're still going to go on with that. I don't know how they're going to do that. Maybe just some virtual stuff, or just, I don't know why they just don't announce it, because at this point, like, having a Zoom meeting for this is just going to seem a little awkward. But I guess they don't want to take away like the players who win MVP or all that stuff. So who do you got for some of the NBA awards? Are there any ones that you think, like, without a doubt that's going to happen?
Well, excuse me. I thought if the season kept going, LeBron would have had a bigger shot at trying to get the MVP, because I think the big reason why Giannis was getting it was because of so many historical things that the Bucks were doing. But with them losing to the Lakers were only like 4 games behind them. So like the Bucks were on this pace to win 70 games. Giannis had the highest PER ever. So like now they weren't really on pace to win 70 games anymore. So the historical aspect has kind of died down. So I thought LeBron had a chance, but if it stopped where it was, I think you still have to give it to Giannis. Defensive Player of the Year, I would say Anthony Davis.
Okay.
Just with the impact that he's made for that Lakers defense. Rookie of the Year, I think, has to be John Morant, just for playing the whole year. I think Zion probably, I wouldn't say he's a better player. He's a more entertaining player to watch, but I think Ja definitely deserves it. Most improved player would be Brandon Ingram. I kind of saw this coming, leaving LA, having the ball in his hands more. And I already said Defensive Player of the Year. Am I missing one? Coach of the Year? Coach of the Year. That one is always tough, because it can always be like 4 or 5 guys.
All right, narrow down to 2 for me. If you like, who are your top 2 for that?
On the West, I would say Frank Vogel, and then on the East, I would say a guy like Nick Nurse.
Okay.
Nick Nurse.
Yeah, I definitely believe Nick Nurse should have won. Because look, when Kawhi left, everybody thought that the Raptors were just going to be this bum team, like going to miss the playoffs. Right. But you forget, like, it takes a team to win the championship, and Kyle Lowry's been playing fantastic, and Pascal Siakam looks like a star in the making. So I definitely think that Nick Nurse should have won that award. MVP, I agree with you. I think Giannis. I think LeBron was having a great year. I don't know where this thing came of him being washed up. I never thought he was washed up. Do I think he took a backseat for AD? Absolutely. Of course he's going to slow down a tad. He's getting older. That's how it naturally happens. But I don't think he really is washed up. The dude can still put up 30 a game if he really wanted to. But he decided to, let me take a backseat to AD, because the team struggles when they decide to revolve everything around LeBron. I think when they try to pass the ball, when they start to run through offense through AD, I think they start to improve even more.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of points in there. Nobody was like, oh, LeBron's like terrible now. Like he's not good enough to play anymore. I just think it was the fact that it was little media outlets out there. Oh, should the Lakers trade LeBron? Oh, well, when they got Anthony Davis and, they started putting their roster together, then you look at, who they had as the top teams in the West, and the Lakers were like 5th, 6th seed. And so it's not directly taking a shot at LeBron, but it's like, well, we don't know if LeBron can go back to that level that he was. And yeah, for the most part, you play the offense through AD, because he's a top 6, top 7 player in the league as well. And so I think at this point, which is why I thought he was making that MVP run. You saw the games Friday night against Milwaukee, Sunday against the Clippers. He was taking that turn to go into playoff mode. And so you saw him Friday night guard Giannis and still put up, 29, 30. then Sunday guarded Kawhi and still put up his numbers. And so that's why I said if it kept going to that, then I think he would have a better chance of winning the MVP. But if it were to stop right now, the guy was, 35, leading the league in assists at age 35. And I think John Stockton led the league. Well, he's an all-time assist leader, but he didn't lead the league in assists for a season after he was 32, 31.
Right. And yeah, I think, like you said, LeBron just started to evolve his game over the years. But speaking of John Stockton in that era, so The Last Dance is premiering on April 19th. I'm very excited for that. So what do you think, how excited are you for the series? What are you looking forward to the most when you watch this?
I'm very excited. I mean, I'm a guy that loves hearing stories about the 90s and the 80s. So I grew up loving hearing the myth of Michael Jordan and how great, how competitive he was, how he shut people down. And so you're telling me it's a 10-hour documentary, 10 parts? Oh man, everybody's gonna be tuned in. Social media is gonna be going crazy. And I think it's a little ploy for Michael Jordan to remind people that I'm still the GOAT. All these other people talks and Kobe and LeBron, but I'm still the greatest of all time.
I mean, if anything, it's going to go either way. I definitely expect a lot of tweets to go out about, this is why MJ is the GOAT. I do believe Michael is better than LeBron, but I do think LeBron is fantastic. But I think this series is going to prove, just how crazy competitive Michael was, because there were I think they're going to emphasize that, because in the trailer, they were doing that nonstop about, Michael was saying, I didn't care about anybody's feelings. I wanted to win. So that's all that matters to me. And I don't know why it's a double-edged sword, because there are plenty of people that were played with LeBron that were hey, I don't like the way he does this, he's too harsh. And then people kind of throw him under the bus for that. But when Michael does it, oh, he's amazing. And I do believe being hard on your teammates, this is how they are. They want to win. That's what it's going to be. I'm very excited. I definitely want to see the dynamic, because I don't know the dynamic too much between Michael and Dennis Rodman. I want to see, that 10-parter, how Michael handled Dennis Rodman's craziness. Yeah. So that should be really interesting.
Because you always hear, because they made a Bad Boys documentary a couple of years ago, and, the Pistons talked about how they had Dennis Rodman under control, and, how he was, kind of comfortable there, and then when he got to Chicago, they just kind of let him, do whatever, and that's why he kind of, was out there like that. And so, like you said, I'm interested to see, how did they treat Rodman, what the dynamic was like. And then that Last Dance, man, those Bulls teams were electric.
It definitely was. So it should be good. And now, now my final kind of topic. So one thing that's going to be on schedule is the NFL. They're going to do the draft virtually. What are you looking forward to this season in the NFL? What are the top headlines that you want to look forward to the most?
Hopefully the Cowboys are making a playoff run. Hopefully the Cowboys are making a playoff run. Man, for me, that NFC West is going to be really fun to watch, with Kyler Murray having DeAndre Hopkins out there, and the Rams and the Seahawks, 49ers. I think the NFC West is the best division by far coming into the year. And then, just all the moves, all the quarterback moves that went on this year. Where's Cam Newton going to end up? If he ends up somewhere, is he going to start? Tom Brady in Tampa. I think that's the biggest one. Does Tom still have some left in the tank? Is he going to look like Peyton in Denver?
What did you think about that? Because I know that when I first heard it, I was a little confused. I was like, why Tampa? But then the more I heard about it, the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, Tampa made the most sense to me. Did you feel the same way, or are you still kind of I don't know why he chose Tampa?
Yeah, I thought Tampa made a lot of sense. It was other places that I definitely speculated. I thought he was going to go to the Chargers. I didn't think he was going to go to the Colts that much. I feel like that's Peyton's house. Always going to be Peyton's house. That was his rival. But, with Tampa, they said he wanted to get out of it to change the scenery in New England. So you go with Bill Arians, known as a quarterback whisperer, worked with a lot of great quarterbacks, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, all those guys. And he's more relaxed. He did a documentary a couple of months ago and said, he's done after practice at 5, he goes drinks a martini. And, and then I think the Patriots, they stopped really supplying Tom with a lot of weapons and tried to keep relying on his greatness. And Tom is really great. But I think at some point, as the age grows, you gotta have some help. And so you got a guy like Mike Evans, who's huge, and Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard. They got a lot of weapons over there, and I think that's why Tom is so comfortable going down there with Bruce Arians, and in a division really where I think personally it's more wide open than people think. I think the Saints are good, but I don't think they can be in that championship window for 4 straight years after those 3 devastating losses in the playoffs like they've had. And so Atlanta, I'm not really sure what direction they're going in. Carolina's got a new coach, new quarterback. I think they'll be a solid 8-8. So I think Tampa has a real shot to really win that division, and the Super Bowl's in Tampa.
I'm not saying he will, but if he somehow gets to the Super Bowl again in Tampa and wins it, then you no longer can argue. Like, I understand why people still kind of want to argue why he's not the greatest. Maybe it's Joe Montana, Lawrence. I don't think you can argue if he does this again. I really don't. Like, he goes to another team, because it's one thing for, like, an NBA player like LeBron or Kawhi to go to an NBA championship. Winning a Super Bowl is, in my opinion, so much harder to win. And the fact that he's going for his 7th, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, and then it's always like who's more important, Bill or Tom? Or, a lot of people will say that Tom is a system quarterback and he can't win without Bill Belichick. When he was hurt, Bill won Matt Castle, Jacoby Brissett. So now it's like the ultimate test. Like, and he's got time against him. Like, you're 41, 42, and you're in new scenery now. You got new receivers. Can you get it done? And if he does get it done, like in the NFC too, like it was always like, oh, Tom's playing in he's playing in the worst division ever. If he gets it done in the NFC, that's tough.
It should be interesting. And now, going back to the Cowboys, what do you think is going to happen this season? Because look, Dak still hasn't signed that tag contract. He still hasn't, and obviously he's in hot water after hosting that party with like 400 people in there. So how do you think this season is going to turn out for the Cowboys? It's, in my opinion, it's either going to be really good or it's going to be just total disaster. That's the direction, the 2 directions I see right now.
I agree with you. I think it's one or the other. I don't think it's going to be like an 8-8, 9-7. I think the Cowboys have a way when it's like no expectation. They always show their true colors, because talent is never the question. Right. Cowboys are always one of the most talented teams in the NFL, and so I think you get a new coach, you get a new scheme out there, and I don't know. Whoever they draft with that 17th pick, whether they go defensive back, interior lineman, they talked about yesterday, what if like CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy's on the board? So maybe they go receiver, but they're going to have to find somebody that can make an impact from day one, because their window is closing at this point, because you got to pay Dak. You already lost, a guy like Byron Jones. People's contracts are going to be up. That's the problem with having young teams. That a lot of people are going to get paid. They're going to need to get paid after a couple of years. So you got Jalen Smith. They've already paid him, but like Leighton Vander Esch and all these guys. So you have to make something happen now. And so I think they can win their division. Okay. For some reason, Philly just never scares me. Maybe it's because I don't like them, but Philly never scares me. So I think they can win their division, and then hopefully, come playoff time, they can make something happen.
All right, man. So really for division, so do you think record-wise, where do you see? Do you see more like a 10-6, 11-5? Like where are you gonna go in the range?
About 11-5.
Okay. I
think 11-5, maybe a 12-4. If they can get the Zeke from 2 years back, if they can get that Zeke from the start of the season to the end of the season, we'll have a great shot.
I don't think that's gonna happen though. I mean,
it's tough
because when he came in, he was all fresh legs, but doing 300 to 400 carries a season, that you cannot maintain that same level of athletic ability. So I know people are saying that he's slowing down. I don't care if you had Saquon in the back. If you do 400 carries a game, just constant bashing nonstop every game, you're gonna slow down. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, I mean, and so for the Cowboys, so we have to find an identity. So are you now a run first team? Are you a pass first team? Because I feel like last year they kind of struggled with the identity of what their team was. Because Dak was top 5 in the league in passing yards. And so everybody's like, well, you need to run the ball more. Oh, well, we run the ball almost every time on 1st and 10. And Zeke gets, 1 or 2 yards, or negative 1 or 2 yards. So
I think it was just key decision making that hurt them the most, hence why they're getting a new head coach. Is just because, like, plenty of times Dak was going off for a game where he threw for 500 yards, but then they decided to run with Zeke when Zeke was struggling. But on the other side, when Zeke is running well, they decided to throw more to Dak. They just couldn't, like, just clamp down, and they couldn't adjust to games perfectly. I think that's what cost them, like, this last season.
Yeah, I mean, and I felt like they had a really good chance come playoffs to make some noise. You know, I think Philadelphia got that spot and they played Seattle in the first round. I thought we could beat Seattle, and then who knows what could have happened. But that was a team that was supremely talented. I had them going to the Super Bowl like at the beginning of last year. I thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl. I thought they were going to be. So it was just extremely disappointing. Glad Jason Garrett is out of there. So now you get a fresh coach with Mike McCarthy. So we'll see how he does.
All right. So we are officially out of time. So before we go, you need to tell me what plans you got in the future. Tell me what you got so far.
As far as right now, coaching, trying to get back on the collegiate level, maybe as like a graduate assistant. But coaching, working with kids, trying to learn more about the game of basketball. I have a podcast. It's called The Game Plan. You guys can check it out. But yeah, just working, man, grinding.
Sounds good, man. It was so good to hear from you again. I enjoyed this. This reminds me of back when I was a freshman and we would have just ridiculous arguments left and right.
Oh man, yeah. You were the young gun coming up.
I'm still that. I still have that mentality.
Yeah. But yeah, those were fun days, man. They really flew by.
Yeah, I mean, it's flying by for me, man. By next semester, I'll still be a junior, but then I'm going to be graduating just in about 3 or 4 semesters, just like that.
It's crazy, man. That's crazy.
All right,
I'm rooting for you, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I root for you, too.
No
Good
problem.
to hear from you again.
Appreciate that.
That's our show, so tune in next time.